We're continuing our series on contentment called Pleasant Places, and I want to read out of Romans chapter 12, verse 1. Romans chapter 12, verse 1. I want to preach a message today called, some of you will instantly relate to this, the madness of my mind. The madness of my mind. And it's Romans chapter 12, verse 1. It says this, it says, "And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him." Then it says, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way that you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. Because of the privilege and authority God has given me, I give each of you this warning." This is a good warning that I think some of us in the room need to hear today. "Do not think you are better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the faith God has given us. Just as our bodies have many parts and each part has a special function, so it is with Christ's body. We are many parts of one body, and we all belong to each other." And then I want to read 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 17 real quickly. It reads like this. It says, "Nevertheless, each person should live as a believer in whatever situation the Lord had assigned to them, just as God had called them. This is the rule I lay down in all the churches." So come on, let's pray together today over the preaching of God's word. God, thank you for your word. I ask you to speak to us today. I ask you, God, to challenge us and to open up our minds in Jesus' name. And we all said, amen and amen. In every fight, I don't know, let me see your hand if you've ever been in a fist fight. Let me see your hand. Have you ever been in a physical fist fight? Let me see your hand, let me see your hand, let me see your hand. Okay, cool, right on, cool. Some of you, the rest of you are like, oh my gosh. Well, if you've never been in a fist fight, let me explain something to you. In every sort of fight, in every sort of altercation, even like in a play fight, there are always spaces and opportunities of vulnerability. Right? In fact, every once in a while, me and my 2.5-year-old son, Justice, will go wrestling around. Now, obviously my son is 2.5, so I can physically impose my will at any time. It makes me feel great about myself, okay? But what's interesting is, even at 2.5 years old, there are a couple things that can happen where he can exploit a vulnerability. One of those things is anything with the eyes. Like Justice and I have been like wrestling around, and he's kind of flipping and flailing, and he pokes me in the eye. It does not matter that I'm a grown man and this is a 2.5-year-old child. That is the ender right there. It's like, and I only got one eye I can see out of, so this is serious business. It's serious business in the guard home, and like, that's my good eye, and it doesn't matter, man, the eyes, it doesn't matter the discrepancy of strength. Eyes are a vulnerability. The other one, speak very bluntly, the growing. It does not matter if Justice is flipping and flailing around and kicks his leg. It's like, okay, we're done. I need to go lay down. Right? So you have the growing, you have the eyes, and then you have, which he could take me out in a second, he can take my soul out. And here's how he can take out my soul. My kids are learning things in preschool, guys. They learn words that I did not teach them. They learn phrases, and their new phrase is "go away." Exactly. Their new phrase is "go away." Go away. Can I tell you, you wanna know what an ender is? Is when I'm around and he goes, "Go away, dada." Ender. Spaces of vulnerability when you're in a fight. You know, discontentment tends to attack us in one of three areas. Discontentment has found some soft spots in our armor. Discontentment has, and one of those areas is our heart. Discontentment will attack your heart. Another place that discontentment will attack you is in your eyes. Where everything you see is something that you don't have. Another spot that discontentment, and this is the one that we're gonna focus on today, that discontentment will attack you is in your mind. Come on, have you ever felt like your mind was just going and you could not stop it? It just feels like, man, why can't my mind? And in particular, the way in which the mind works is oftentimes we're attacked in discontentment in the areas of career, in our place in life, and in our pace of life. Those are the three areas that in our mind, it's like, man, okay, should I take this job? Should I not take it? We're thinking about career. We think about where we live. Am I living in the right area? Am I living in the right geographical space? Or, man, am I keeping up with the pace of life? Come on, you ever found yourself being discouraged? You feel like you're losing a race? And I'm always like, who are you racing? Come on, I talk to 24-year-olds and they're like, I feel like I'm getting so behind. I'm like, behind who? Like who are you? 30-year-olds, man, I feel like I'm just behind. Behind who? Well, it's because we're attacked in the area of discontentment in our mind. And so our mind is running and we don't know how to stop it. We don't even know really how to slow it down. Sometimes I get anxious about seating arrangements. Anybody else ever been there? You get anxious? Like whenever I'm invited to a wedding, and I'm going to a wedding, I get real anxious about the seating arrangement at the reception. Anybody else like me? Because I'm not very good at small talk. Anybody else like, let me see your hand if you're just not very good at small talk. I'm like, hey, that weather. What is it, about 92% humidity today? I'm not very good at it. So I get real nervous when I go to it. Now sometimes, Christina and myself or Christina, or me are doing the wedding. And it's like that famous walk that you go up to the board. And now they put this stuff on a board. I don't know if you've been to a wedding recently, but they put this stuff on a board. And you're like, okay, right? And you're like, okay, there's my name. Okay, there's table 18. Okay, who else? I don't just go sit right away. I scout the land. Because I'm like, do I really want that chicken I marked a week ago? Like, right? Okay, is the chicken worth it? Let me see. Who else is at table 18? Okay, yeah, they're all right. Yep, they're all right. Okay, I think they left the church recently. I think, stop. It's a joke. Table, okay. I get real nervous about seating arrangements. But what I love is when I'm going to a wedding and I know the people know me, I know I'm going to be okay. Because the people that know me, they know who I hang out with, they know who I spend time with, they know my personality, and so they're gonna put me at a spot that is gonna optimize my experience. Jesus tells a story, a really interesting story, about how to operate when you show up to a dinner party. And what he says, hey, when you show up, don't sit at the most important seat. Because then what happens is you're gonna sit at the most important seat, but somebody more important than you is gonna come and you're gonna get embarrassed. It's like when you buy tickets in the nosebleeds. Come on, you ever try to like scoot down? You ever go to a Rays game and you try to scoot down and then someone comes, hey, can I see your tickets? And you don't even show it. In fact, sometimes you act like you look for places that you never put tickets. Like, no, ain't nobody ever put a ticket here. Like, sir, you're wearing a t-shirt. You don't even got pockets. I don't know where my tickets are. And I call it the walk of shame, and then you got to walk up to your 300 section ticket, your $4 ticket, right? Jesus said, yeah, you don't want to be embarrassed like that. So when you come, he says, don't sit at the most important seat. Instead, sit at the lowest seat. So then the master of ceremonies, right, in this illustration that he's saying, God can go, oh, that's not your seat. Your seat is right here. It's just another way of saying God has a specific seat for you. God has a very specific place and a very specific seat for you. And if you don't like your seat at the table, then you have a couple choices. One of those is you can pray and fast and discern if God is calling you out. So one of the things, if you're in a spot right now, and whether it's your vocation or your geography or your pace of life, I think maybe you got to spend some time praying and fasting and going, God, is this a time where I'm supposed to step out? So that's one thing you can do. Or you can do this. You can discover you may be looking for fulfillment from something that will not provide it. So what you may do is you may go, okay, you know what? I'm going to pray and I'm going to fast. I'm going to see if God is calling me out. Or you may discover, you know what? I think I'm looking for something to provide something that it can never, ever provide. In fact, here's my point. My only point today is this, is that contentment is only possible when we have a healthy expectation for what something is supposed to provide. Contentment is only possible when we have a healthy expectation for what something is supposed to provide. You ever have one of those moments where you have to do what my friend calls an expectation investigation? Ever got an expectation investigate? This is years, it is maybe 3 or 4 years ago now. But there was this guy and he was coming around the church and he kind of scared me. I was like afraid, you know what I mean? Like if I'm in, if I go missing, look in his fridge kind of guy. You know what I mean? Like you just know, these kind of people. And he was at the church, and I remember, we met a couple times, and he was real aggressive, and my discerner was kind of going up, and he was getting real frustrated because I wouldn't give him my cell phone number. I wouldn't give him my cell phone number. And was like, this is actually a better way to reach me. And this is what he said. He said, at my last church, my pastor and I were best friends. So I just thought, like, man, me and you, like, we're gonna be good friends. I thought, maybe not best friends, but good friends. And why can't I have your number? And the more that I was like, and you ever know those people? The more you say no, the more they press it. The more you're really glad you said no. You're like, whoa, this is getting weird. It's getting a little uncomfy. And so I went to him and I said, sir, all due respect, like, I don't know that we're gonna be like besties for the resties. Like I don't know. I don't know. What did I have to bring him on? I had to bring him on a journey of what? An expectation investigation. And so what I want to tell you today is maybe we need to go down an expectation investigation for your vocation. I think we got to go down, and I want to give you 3 things that your vocation is designed to provide, and only 3 things. Sometimes I say, this is a list, and it's not an exhaustive list. This is an exhaustive list. These are 3 things that you should be able to count on your vocation. It doesn't mean that you won't maybe get other things. It's just the only things that you should be able to count on are these 3 things. And they're real simple. They're not sexy, but they're real simple. The first one is to provide you and whoever you're responsible for, like, the necessities. Food, shelter, clothing. That is one thing that you should be able to count on in your job, is to go, hey, this is designed to do that. This is designed to help you pay your bills. This is designed for you to eat. This is designed for you to be clothed. The other thing is this is a big one, is to become your vehicle of proximity. Your job is designed to become your vehicle of proximity to make a difference in other people's lives. So when you show up to work, God has put you in that space of work, yes, to provide for your family, first and foremost, and secondarily is that he put you in an environment with those people that you guys would experience life together, and the God that dwells within you would empower you to make a difference in the lives of those people around you. God gives you a job for proximity. That's why I love what Brandon said about, man, I have a responsibility to these 15 young men every single year to do whatever I can to make a difference in their lives. God has given you that vocation for proximity. The third reason and the third thing that we can expect out of vocation is a daily exercise of contribution. You're wild when you're bored. You are scary. You'll start talking, sometimes like if Christina's out of town, like about 27 hours into her being out of town, I start talking to myself. Doesn't have to be that long. Just like one day, I'm sitting on the couch just watching a game. Like, hey, what do you think? Oh man, I think they should have traded him. I need my wife back. It's been a day, right? See, the reason why God gave us work is so that we could have some contribution, so that we could have something that we're putting our hands to the plow to. Because even in the Garden of Eden, that was a perfect scenario. Adam was still called to work the land. Why? Because you and I, we need something. We need purpose in our work. We need something. It doesn't mean that all of our work has to align with our faith. It just means, gosh, I need something to do today. I need to get up and meet. I need to return an email. I need stuff to do today. Now, the reality is this, is loving our job is a scale. Loving your job is a scale. And I'm all for putting ourselves in the best possible situation that our talents afford us. I'm all for putting yourself in the best possible situation that your relationships afford you. I'm all for putting yourself in the best possible situation that your experience affords you. I'm not saying you should stay in a bad job and just be grateful you have a bad job. What I am telling you is that you need to take an expectation investigation. That you need to say, are you expecting too much from a vocation? Are you expecting it to do something that it is not equipped or designed to do? And if that's the case, it's okay to, again, make moves. It's okay to do things that put you in a better position. But listen to this. When I'm at Starbucks and I see a barista like full of life and just happy to be there and just shows up and they're encouraged, like my man Lucas who works at Starbucks, and he's always like, hey, my name's Lucas, how's it go? Like he's just an amazing guy, and he shows up and he's ready to go and he's engaged and he gets the drink right and everything. I don't assume that like everybody that's like that is in their dream job. I just assume, man, they have a way of looking at this thing that is a little different than the way typically people look at these things, and they just go, yeah, I don't assume everybody that is like great, and when you show up in customer service and they're ready to, I don't assume they're all in their dream job, but you know what I think they've discovered? They have discovered a way of thinking. See, if you're following God in this room this morning, the scriptures tell us that we are to think differently. The Bible says that, we just read it, that we are to be transformed, that we are to offer our bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is our reasonable act of worship. And so when I show up to work and I give God my very best, that is my spiritual act of worship. And when I do that, and when I change my thinking and I understand that I'm here for proximity to make a difference in their lives, I'm here providing food and shelter for my family, and I am here putting my hand to the plow in life, making a greater contribution to the world, it gives me something to do, then you and I shift the way we're thinking, and then we can operate in those vocations differently. But we got to change the way we think. Because if you don't change the way you think, nothing changes. If you don't change your approach, then nothing changes. So it starts out with saying, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world. Like, how cliche is it for you to not like your boss? My boss, until you're the boss, right? Complaining about your job and not doing anything to change it. Complaining about your boss, and now you're a part of the problem. Is operating under the patterns and customs of this world. And therefore, you and I look no different when we go to work and try to make a proximity impact with people than people that don't know Jesus. And so the Bible is instructing us, man, we got to change the way we think. And then it goes on, it says, I love what the Apostle Paul writes here. He says, because of the privilege and authority God has given me, I give you each this warning. He says, I give you a warning. Like, that's intense. Like, the Apostle Paul's like, yo, I'm Paul. It's me, the dude, right? And because I'm that guy, I'm gonna give you this warning. Do not think you are better than you really are. You ever met someone that misread who they are? These people are the best. If you don't know any of these people, it's you, bro. It's you. No, what do you mean? I call it the American Idol syndrome. Come on, you ever watch American Idol and you're like, you don't hear that? That's how American Idol got big, right? Is that people would show up that they thought they were the next big thing, would show up and they're singing and they're like, it's blowing, it's blowing, it's blowing, move inside my, like, and then Simon Cowell got big by just going, you're terrible, telling them facts. Simon Cowell blew up just telling facts. And people went, oh, wait, what? Go on, I remember talking to this like young person one time, and they were just surprised. They didn't understand why they weren't famous yet. And I was like, what's your skill set? Like, how should we know you? Like, what are we supposed to know about you? Like, why should you be famous? Now, you know, some of us, maybe that is a part of your, but if it's not, it's interesting how we find ourselves in this place where we can overestimate ourselves to such a degree that we grow discontent in what we're doing because we think that we are above. Can I encourage you, don't ever think you're above anything. You wanna know the best people in jobs are people that are just down for whatever. You wanna know what people I love on our staff are like, yeah, this is my job, but I'm still down for whatever. I hope you're still down for, you wanna know how to do good in your vocation is still be down for whatever, no matter what it takes in your job. It's just, I'm just willing to do whatever it takes because I don't think I'm here. I'm just grateful that I have a job. I'm just grateful that God's providing. I'm just grateful that I have something to get up and do today. God is with me and God has something on my life and when there's something on my life, I don't gotta have a title. I just know there's something on my life. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, but we're so freaked out by titles. This is why every title in the last 20 years has gotten somehow enhanced. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter what the title is. Like, nobody's a janitor anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I remember like my first job in ministry was I was the janitor. And that's like what it was. It was like the janitor. It wasn't like, you know, the building beautification expert. It's amazing what we've done to appease our ego. It's amazing. Instead of just growing on the inside and just growing more humbly, we've changed the rules on the outside. We just have changed things on the outside and just instead of just going, I don't really care, right? And after all, I serve a God who came down humbly as a man, actually took off his cloak, wrapped it around his waist, got down on his hands and knees and washed the feet of the people that were actually following him and then went to the cross and died for the people that were supposed to be worshiping him. A rule for life is what I tell our staff all the time. Don't ask questions if you aren't prepared for a real answer. Don't ask questions. Well, how come I don't ever get opportunity? How come? All right, you want to talk about it? See, you and I got to give an honest assessment about where we're at. We got to stop thinking of ourselves here. Otherwise, it'll limit our growth. It'll limit our ability to grow. So here's a few ways to really gauge where we're at. How do I gauge where I'm at? Here's one way: wise counsel from trusted people. Wise counsel from trusted people. Have some trusted people in your life that say, hey, this is what I see in you. Hey, this is things. Otherwise, you might think you're good at something that you're not very good at. Conversely, on the other side, you might think you're not very good at something that you're actually really exceptional at. And so you got to get wise counsel from trusted people. Here's another big one: an honest assessment of fruit. We really believe this here at Grace City Church. Everybody's a 10 in some area. And for some of us, the problem is we'd rather never find our 10 and be a 5 in an area just because we think our society values it more. And then we wonder why we're not fulfilled. We wonder why we're not having the maximum impact we could, because I actually really care what my people on my right and left think. I actually really care about what they think I'm doing for a career. I'm actually really more afraid of like how much money I make. I'm actually really more afraid of what people around me think than I am going, I'm gonna find my 10. I'm gonna do whatever it takes. And so an honest assessment of fruit. And then the third one is time allotted to a particular thing. Listen, it takes time to get great at anything. It just takes time. And I think sometimes, we think we're further along than we are. And so what we do, we get frustrated by promotions in a job that we haven't really earned yet, but because we see ourselves in the next 20 years, or we have a misdiagnosis of who we actually are at the time, we leave jobs before we would have gotten promoted because we just didn't stay in the job long enough in order for people to see what we were bringing to the table, or in order to get better at what we were actually doing. The days of consistency are old school. And my heart is to bring back some of this stuff to go, you could probably be great at something if you stuck with it. You could probably be pretty special at something if you stuck around long enough. You could actually probably be pretty special. You could actually probably make a pretty big contribution if you just hang out for a little while. And then I want to have the team come up because I want to finish with this last verse. It says, nevertheless, each person should live as a believer in whatever situation the Lord has assigned to them, just as God has called them. Now, what's interesting is Paul is addressing a very real situation here. So the Apostle Paul shows up on the scene, and what was happening is people were giving their heart to Christ. They were becoming Christians. And then the problem, and some of you have experienced this, they didn't know what to do, and they thought they had to make these sweeping overhaul changes. Like, for example, like when I got saved, and basketball had been such a huge part of my life, and pre-Christ, it was an idol. It was my everything. And then I got saved. What was interesting is I didn't know how to navigate. It took me a second to figure out how to navigate it. In fact, even at 17 years old, I thought about quitting because I was like, man, this has been such a big part of my life. And then I gave my heart to Christ, and I didn't know how to carry it properly. And I actually thought, because this is an idol, or at least it was before I stepped into a relationship with God, that I had to let go of it. And the Apostle Paul is telling the people, don't do that. He's actually specifically saying, hey, stay in the position that you were in when you got saved. Because what Paul understood is he understood how divine destination works. In fact, Christine and I, we have this Find My iPhone app thing on our thing, so we can track each other. We can track her, right? So if she doesn't answer when I call, just track her, just like pull it up, right? And so sometimes I'm like, she's at this coffee shop, she's probably in a meeting, or man, she's picking up the kids, so she's probably doing that, right? And she can do the same for me. And every once in a while, like if I really want to see her, I can head her off. Now she doesn't know I'm tracking her. She doesn't know that I'm husband stalking her. But that's exactly what I'm doing. So I'm like, I think she's on her way to go pick up the kids, or I think she's on her way to that coffee shop, and I think she has a meeting. So I think I can beat her to that meeting, and so I'll show up and I'll get to give her I'll give her a hug and a kiss, especially if it's a long day and we just happen to be in a similar area. I know how to head her off. And I can tell you, God works the same way. In fact, Nick, go ahead and stand up. You look great in the all black, by the way. Go ahead and stand over there in that corner. Nick, you're going to be God. Nick is God, not literally for the sake of the illustration. Nick is God, and I don't know about you, but I remember when we started talking about vocation, like at my 6th grade graduation, right, which is a big deal for me. I didn't know if I was going to make it. At my 6th grade graduation, we would put in our little book at the graduation, and they would read out what you thought you wanted to be for your career. And I remember this like it was yesterday. In my 6th grade, little graduation ceremony, it said that I wanted to be in the NBA and or the military. Now, I'm grateful for everybody that serves. Incredibly grateful. And we are all incredibly grateful that I'm not one of them. Okay? And I also thought it was funny, looking back, I thought it was funny that I was actually like willing to be in the NBA and also in the military at the same time. Like, how selfless of me. What a guy. And then that was in 6th grade. And then when I was like 13, 14, 15 years old, I thought, man, I think I'd love to coach. I would love to coach, and I think I'd love to be a history teacher. And as life was going, you're kind of making decisions. I mean, think about over the last 20 years, how many things you thought you were gonna do and where you thought you were gonna live. And there was a time actually where Christina and I thought we were gonna plant a church in Washington, D.C. And we thought we were pastoring in that area, and we loved the area, and we thought we were gonna plant a church there. And then there was a stretch in time where I thought we were gonna plant a church in a city called Bellevue, Washington, which is kind of just on the east side of Seattle. And then when I gave my heart to Christ, I still thought I was gonna probably coach college basketball. But then after about 2 years, I thought, man, I think I'm supposed to go into ministry. I think I'm supposed to do this. And then that started a journey. And then I was a youth pastor and a young adults pastor in Washington, D.C. Then we moved back to Washington State, and I was a youth and young adults pastor. And the whole time I was kind of navigating. And then a good friend of mine, Ken Engel, becomes this president at Southeastern University and says, hey, will you come and help shift the culture? So I come, and I did that for 4 years. After 3 years of being there, I felt like, man, I think we're supposed to plant a church here. I think this is what we are supposed to do. And what's interesting, the whole time, and I'll be honest, and some of this stuff happened before, some of these decisions were made before I got saved, some of them were made after I got saved, but sometimes I prayed about it, sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I fasted about it, sometimes I didn't. But I was just kind of living. And what I didn't realize is that I was on a collision course. What I didn't realize is that even the decisions in which I wasn't seeking God, God was seeking me. And even the decisions that I was making, that I thought I was just making flippant decisions. I thought I was just making decisions, and I thought it was just me, and I thought I was just doing my thing. And what I didn't realize is that there would come a time where who I was and the decisions that I was making would come face to face with the God of the universe. And the awesome thing is, and the beautiful thing is listen, don't forsake your gifts, don't forsake your talents, don't forsake the decisions you've made up to this point in your life, because it has not all been in vain. Sometimes it's easy when you get a revelation of God and you're like, do I gotta switch careers? No, now you just gotta do whatever you're doing for the glory of God. Now you gotta do whatever you're doing to the best of your ability. Now you gotta do whatever you're doing, why? So that you can help as many people as possible. I think a lot of times we think, oh man, I just gotta throw the baby out with the bathwater. No, God has created you in such a way. And He's designed you in a way. Don't forsake who God designed you to be. But we get discontent because we look around the world and we think like the world and we say, what does the world value? Instead of just going, who am I? Who's God made me to be? And I'm grateful that, man, I could be anywhere, but I'm in Lakeland, Florida, baby. And I could be doing anything, but I'm pastoring the greatest church in the United States of America. I could be anywhere doing anything. And yet here you are with the people on your right and left, doing life together, spending time together, growing together, developing together. My prayer, I've been praying since I prepped this whole series, that every week would go by in this series that you would just more and more be more and more convinced that the lines have fallen for you in pleasant places. Man, decisions I just thought I was making on a whim, moving from Kentucky. That was an easy decision. Not moving to New York. Decisions you thought you were just making. Now you were on a collision course for God's destiny over your life so that the lines could fall for you in pleasant places. Come on, church, can we stand to our feet?